nice. Okay? I don't want you all arguing over who's responsible for this or who's going to do that. We will have discussions about those things. What we'll get into is going to be, first off, basic understanding of Agile project management, basic understanding of requirements management, and then talk about how the two will work together. What I'll also talk to you about will be new things that are trending from a U.S. perspective, from an overall North American perspective, right? In terms of Agile deliveries and in terms of requirements understanding. Okay? Some of the stuff that I'll talk to you about is not necessarily in the slide, but it's things that at some point will be available on the different websites as far as PMI, PMI Chapter, IIBA, but definitely MT&DC will have the new things that I'm going to speak to you about. All right, so what we're going to get into, first the definition of Agile project management. Also, we're going to look at some different types of Agile methods, or at least mention some different types of Agile methods. Also, popular Agile methods. Then we'll get into requirements management, the approach to requirements management versus traditional requirements management. And then talk about different requirements techniques and then requirements management best practices. Now, when I talk about these best practices, these will be from a standpoint of not just traditional, but also from an Agile perspective as well. Now, basic Agile project management definition, right? It's really looking at how you can take a project and deliver it in a highly flexible way. One of the interesting things that is happening is typically when you think of Agile projects or Agile development, you probably think software development, IT-related things. What we're finding out is Agile and the Agile concept can be applied to other types of projects, to other parts of the business. I'll talk a little bit more about that as one of the trending things. But here, the definition is, again, delivering projects in a highly flexible and interactive manner. Now, some would ask, what's the difference between Agile and iterative? One of the initial differences, or fundamental differences, is Agile is based in shorter time frames, typically weeks, whereas iterative is going to be in months. Okay? Other things that will make a difference between Agile and, say, iterative is how the teams work together. Okay? How the teams are going to work together is another approach to how Agile differs from overall Agile. Because Agile comes from the Agile software development, it follows the same principles and concepts. Now, here are some well-known Agile software development methods. Okay. Any of these you all familiar with? First off, let me ask, how many of you are doing Agile development? Great job. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to do it. Okay, so some of you are doing it. How many of you are interested in doing Agile development? So here are just a few of the different types of Agile methods. Which one would you think is the most popular Agile development method? Scrum? You all looked at the presentation. Scrum is the most common one, right? Here's another interesting research fact. Gartner Group, a research organization, predicts that by the end of 2012, this year, most projects will be 80% agile. Most projects that will be done, 80% of them will be done from an agile perspective. Okay? So, because Scrum is considered the most popular one, then what we'll look at will be some of the things in terms of how Scrum works. Okay? I'm not going to get into the details of it or some of the other details of things, but just give you pretty much a high-level understanding of the overall principle of Agile from a project standpoint as well as a requirements standpoint. One interesting thing to remember, though, is because of Agile, certain titles are going away. When I say titles, I mean what you all may be traditionally used to. For example, project management. For example, business analyst. Okay? Those that are doing Scrum, you'll know that the Scrum team doesn't have the title of project manager or business analyst. The role still exists, but the titles don't. So part of the thing about Agile is they're not focused or concerned so much with what title has, meaning, but really what the role of the teams have. Each team member has a set of roles, expectations, and they have to trust the other team members to get things done. So when you think about that, I want you to think about, okay, if we're going to do Agile, or as we do Agile, how are we going to manage the requirements? I get this a lot, questions in terms of, well, wait a minute. From an Agile perspective, what I understand is there's no documentation. So how are you going to handle requirements if there's no documentation? Do you all document in your Agile projects? Yeah? Do you capture requirements? Okay. So I don't have to say it, right? Some of the people who already said they do it, they're telling you, they document it, and they capture requirements. The trick, or the challenge, not the trick, the challenge is really understanding what is value. And the way Agile looks at things is there's less emphasis on process, more emphasis on delivery. Okay? What can we deliver to our customer that adds value? So in doing that, you're looking at what are some of the high-level requirements? What are the most important types of requirements? And then let's start focusing on delivery of those. Once you start to do that, then after you have gotten what you consider to be the requirements, and then you start going through your reviews and you start looking at how things are done and you're working with the product owners and the customers, then you will do some of the documentation. But the thing behind this is Agile has more planning than the traditional. we always capture all of the requirements up front? In other words, have we ever had to change a requirement? Yes? No? Am I the only one that's had to change a requirement? No, right? So we know that in a traditional sense, we can't capture everything up front. So one of the things that Agile looks at is, hey, let's take what we know we want to deliver and work on that first. We'll capture some of the other things and put them into a stack of requirements. As we review, then we'll go in and make any updates, changes. So here's the thing that most folks don't really understand or think about. In a traditional sense, changing requirements is considered a bad thing. You don't want it. You don't want to have it. Because usually it may be sometime late in your life cycle of the person. Or it's going to cost more, it's going to cost this or that. But from an Agile perspective, change is okay. It's actually considered a good thing. Because we know with that we can now add additional things to what the customer is looking for. Requirements management. Here again, it's the process of basically capturing the requirements, delivering on those requirements, prioritizing those requirements. Okay? So you're still going to have this approach, it's just going to be done in a different way, using different formats, if you will. And then you're still communicating to the various stakeholders about what you have as requirements. Here is part of the requirements process. Nothing really changes here. You're still doing your analysis. You're still going through, identifying what are the functional components. You're still going to look at what are the system elements. You're verifying, and then you're going through your initial design. And from the output of that is what you have to requirements. In Agile, you're doing that in a more upfront and more consistent basis. So one of the things that I want you to think about from a requirement standpoint, you're still going to collect your requirements. You're still going to follow certain methods. One of the key things that you have to know is what is our Agile approach, or what is our project management approach, and then you're going to fit your requirements management approach into that. Right? From an Agile perspective, it's going to be more consistent dailies, reviews, understanding what can happen, what the challenges may be, what's stopping us from getting something done. Here again, you're going to look at what are the specifics, the strategies, our releases, the iterations, what are our dailies, and then we're going to go through continuous improvements below. And then the output is going to be working software or working code from the software development perspective. The output here will be working value, working result. Okay? Here's the basic principle. Whatever you need